We'll break away from this recorded interview to take you back live now to Nashua, New Hampshire, and Ohio Governor John Kasich.
Thank you. It's nice to be here with, wow, there's a lot of people here. You'd think we're getting close to a big day, huh? Are we? So I want to say a couple things, and then maybe we can do a few questions. How would that be? So by the end of business tomorrow night, I will have done 75 town hall meetings. How's that? I mean, that's just... So John McCain, if you're watching, I'm catching you, and we're just going to keep plugging. It's great to be here. And for all of you in this state, I think I've been described as somebody who doesn't do much pandering, and I might as well just tell it like it is. But I wanted to say to you that this process of New Hampshire is fantastic. And the process of the town halls is just great. And regardless of how I do here, I believe that this first in the nation primary, where people, they really don't care if you're rich or famous or it doesn't matter. They want to look at you, they want to poke you, so maybe take a little smell once in a while, size you up, and try to figure out whether you've got the right stuff to be President of the United States. And I tell you, I think it's a great process, and the country needs to understand that this recommendation that comes out of New Hampshire is really one that you've all thought carefully about. Just a couple things before I take questions. You know, I'm very positive about the future of our country. I mean, I don't spend much time looking in the rearview mirror. I don't know whether you know or not, I'm sure there's reason to celebrate, but Barack Obama is only going to be president for a few more months, okay? So, and that's sort of like old news, though. You know, it's like I'm in this big bus, you know, it's Lady Antebellum's old bus. My wife said, has your singing improved? But you know, when you're in that bus, I'm talking to the bus driver, Brad, about how he drives it. I said, do you spend much time looking at the rear view mirrors? He said, no, you know, I don't. Because if I want to drive this bus effectively, I don't look what's behind us. I look through the front windshield at that car, and he says, you see that red car climbing up that hill? That's where I keep my eyes. And that's exactly where I keep my eyes. I keep it on the future. So, do we have serious problems? Yeah, we do. Are they solvable? There's no doubt they're solvable. And I actually feel as though they're easier to solve these problems when you're sort of positive about the ability to get it done than when you're moping about where we are, okay? Now, why might I feel that way? What is it that I've seen that causes me to be optimistic about the future? Well, in 1982, I was the only Republican in America to defeat an incumbent Democrat, and I ran in 1982 in a very down time. I think we lost like 26 seats in the United States House of Representatives, and Reagan lost his working majority. But in 1982, I was elected running on the Reagan agenda. Now, Ronald Reagan came in the election of 1980, and you know, you remember his famous line, it's morning in America. It was morning in America, and I was there and worked with Ronald Reagan to see this country reach new heights, new strengths, new optimism. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened. And America's confidence, America's spirit, and America's strength was restored because of Ronald Reagan. And I was there to see it. I was there when Ronald Reagan was able to sit down with Tip O'Neill and be able to strengthen our Social Security program. Oh yeah, I mean, everybody says, well, they were great friends. They weren't great friends. They were a couple Irishmen like to have a drink. Nothing unusual about that. But they decided that they were Americans before they were anything else. And that program was in so much trouble. Well, they didn't fix it forever because we're going to have to fix it again. But they worked together to get it done. You know, I went to the Soviet Union as a member of the Defense Committee. I believe it was it might have been early 1989. I met these Russian generals. I can actually remember going down into a missile silo where the missile would have been aimed at us. And I remember jogging into Red Square and having a couple agents, and I don't know who they were, with trench coats trying to keep up with me as I ran into Red Square. And then I remember when we were in Berlin, and I remember getting off the bus and having these soldiers in East Berlin scream at me. It kind of scared me. They said, "Get back on the bus." But you see, I also remember when the Berlin Wall came a-tumbling down. Who would have ever dreamt it? And we better think about it today. What an accomplishment to have seen people all over the world set free. And then it wasn't much after that that I saw us engage in the troubles in Central America. And I saw things improve. And it wasn't long after that that I saw a coalition of Arabs and Westerners get together to shove Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. I was there. I was in Kuwait right after it happened. I was there when the oil fields were on fire. And what a successful effort it was for the world itself to achieve success. And of course, I was there in '97 because I was the chief architect of the last time we balanced the budget when people said it couldn't be done, and we paid down $500 billion of the national debt, and we were just rolling in this country with the creation of jobs and progress and affluence. And I was there in 2010 after being elected, looking at a state that had lost 350,000 jobs. Our credit was headed south. People were depressed. And we were running a 20% lower cut, a potential shortfall in our operating budget in Ohio. They said, well, it couldn't be fixed. I went to New York. I met with the rating agencies. You can't fix Ohio. I said, you just watch what happens in Ohio, because we're a sleeping giant. So we've gone from $8 billion in the hole to $2 billion in the black. Our credit is rock solid. Our pensions are secure. And yesterday I found out that since I've been governor of Ohio, the state of Ohio, the private sector, has created over 400,000 jobs. So what do I think about our country? We've got conservative principles, conservative solutions. Government is a last resort, not as a first resort. The idea that I've been saying for 25 years that we should run this country from the bottom up, from where we live to the top, not from the top down. And I do believe that we can send welfare back to the states. And I do believe that we can bundle up the education programs and empower states and locals and school boards to be able to fix our education programs at the local level. I do believe that we can have better infrastructure if we move the transportation programs out of Washington back here. I do believe we can have better health care when we ship Medicaid back to the states and let the legislators figure out a more creative and innovative way to deliver services to the poor and the disabled. And I do believe we can train our workers better if we bring the power back here. And I do believe with tax cuts we empower you and we begin to continue to drive America from the bottom up, or begin to start to drive America from the bottom up. Oh, and I know we have problems with the border. I know we have to restore the strength and give hope to our seniors on Social Security. I know we have to make a greater effort to have common sense regulations and lower taxes and a path to a balanced budget to spur job creation. I know that we can do things that can fix the wage situation, because in my state wages are growing faster than the national average. I know that we can begin to contend with the problem of the rising costs of both health care and higher education. Oh, a lot of issues. But you know what's fun? There's nothing more fun than putting a team together of people to fix those problems. And we will fix those problems, and we will drive the answer to those problems. But I got an incredible opportunity to speak to the New Hampshire House, where they were on a bipartisan basis taking on the issue of drug addiction in this state. Excuse me. And I had a moment to say to them about what I believe public service is all about. Republicans, Democrats. That was secondary that day I was in that chamber. Because before they were Republicans and Democrats, they were citizens of New Hampshire. And they were going to pass this legislation overwhelmingly. And I told them, you know, sometimes when you get in your car and you drive home, you wonder what you got done being a public servant. Well, today, you're going to know what public service is really all about. Because when you're driving home, thank the good Lord that you were part of a body that worked together to save the lives of young people and people, unfortunately, now of all ages who face the challenges of addiction. And then when you get home, you're going to see your spouse. Your spouse is going to say, so another trip to that building in Concord, another 2-hour trip, and you don't even get paid for going. What did you do today? I made a difference today. I saved a life today. I created a legacy for our family because we were part of the solution to the problem of drug addiction in New Hampshire. You see, folks, we win the majority, we win the White House. We get to call the tune. We get to push our ideas, but we're not going to demonize the other side because we need them. We're not going to get most of them. We're certainly not going to get all of them. But we're going to fix these problems because if I'm President of the United States, I'm going to convince them the reason they make that trek to Washington is not to engage in warfare, but to engage in solutions. And all these things that we see out there that are challenges, rebuilding the military, reforming the Pentagon, assuming our proper place in the world, do you understand this is all doable? The only thing that gets in the way is human ego, partisanship, and thinking about ourselves. You see, what Reagan was able to do is be able to get everybody to lift their game a little bit higher to serve the United States of America. One thing I don't like about this campaign and business is you got to talk too much about yourself. A lot of people that know me would say, John, that's never been your problem. But you know, as I've matured, my skills come from the Lord. And maybe He gave me one skill that was unique. The ability to get people to do what they know they should do, but oftentimes don't want to do. And maybe the ability to somehow pull people together is part of a movement to make our country better. Somebody asked me today, the little Toastmasters club, it was so sweet. I walked in the door and they go, hey, you know how to speak, don't you? I said, well, I don't know, sometimes. So why did you go into politics? To change the world. To change the world. You know, that's not a campaign talk, because I believe all of us are capable in one way or another of changing the world. Part of a great mosaic where together we bring healing. That's what we're here for, to make this world a little better place. It's been great to be in New Hampshire, and I ain't leaving for quite a long time. So, thank you all very much, and let me take a few questions. How much time did I eat up? I don't even know. Okay, so we're going to, how much? Okay, yes, sir, right here. You know, I've learned these town halls, if somebody's hand goes up too quick, you ignore them, but I'm going to go with you today.
Governor, you're very inspirational. You speak from the heart. You have a great track record, a great resume. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I'm running second now in New Hampshire, and all the big money and spending special interests, listen, sir, I want you to know that all of my lifetime, I've really been fighting the establishment, getting people upset because I want to bring change. You know, when you try to balance the budget, you know, I got my buddy Tim Penny here. I don't know if he's in this room now. He's a former Democrat. He's now an independent. And he and I got together with a handful of Republicans and Democrats to try to cut 1 penny out of every dollar of federal spending. Okay? And we lost by 4 votes. Who worked against us? Republicans and Democrats. And Hillary Clinton, by the way, was up there lobbying against it. And they all say, you know, well, John, how would you do against Hillary? I mean, come on. She's a plumber. You can see that she's a fragile candidate. I mean, the generals, I'm going to have a ball. And I'll be back here, by the way, because we got to win New Hampshire in the general. But Tim, you know who stopped us? A Republican appropriator that told the guy sitting next to you, if you vote for the Penny Kasich plan to cut a penny out of every dollar, I'm going to kill the dam project in your district. You want special funding for something at home? I'm going to kill it. So they won the battle. But in 1997, they lost the war because we beat down the establishment, we balanced the budget, we cut the capital gains tax, and we provided a pay down over time of $500 billion of the national debt. You see, what happens in Washington, is everybody's got their own little thing. It's in every state house. Why do you think that the mentally ill and the drug addicted get ignored? Now the drug addicted we're paying attention to because right in our neighborhoods, and you're demanding action. But why do you think for so long the mentally ill or the developmentally disabled have been ignored? Because they don't have a loud voice. And who gets the loud voice? All the special interests and the big money. I don't want to pull them down, but I'm going to beat them when it's appropriate for all of us. You know, I found hammers and screwdrivers in the Pentagon that cost tens of thousands of dollars. It was a total ripoff. And so I fought to change it. How do you think the defense contractors felt about that? But you know, it doesn't matter, does it? And sometimes you're like Sisyphus. You know, for the young, you know who Sisyphus is? He's a guy that pushes, you remember this, you push a rock up the hill, and as soon as you get it almost to the top, it comes back down again. You can't be Sisyphus. You got to push it to the top of the hill and get it all the way up there. And it can be done. So, sir, a lot of special interests now, they're getting nervous about me. You know, he's doing well in New Hampshire. My God, we don't have to put up with him again. It's sort of like it was with Teddy Roosevelt. You know, they made him governor of New York because they wanted to get rid of him. Then they sent him to be vice president because they couldn't stand him. And then after McKinley got killed, he was president of the United States and he flipped everything upside down. That's what we're going to do. But we'll see. I work as hard as I can, and then at that point, it's in your hands, but more important, it's in the hands of the big guy. And you know, I got to tell you something that's so cool. On my bus the other day, the bus we're riding in, the reporter comes on. He says, you know, we go on these other buses, and people's hair's on fire, and they're all uptight, and people shouting. I go on this bus, it's like it's Zen. How could you have a campaign that is so calm and Zen-like? You know why? Because there's a lot more life to come. You give it your best, and you live with the results. And we'll see. So, you know, in the old spirit of what you have to say in New Hampshire, you have to ask for the vote. Please vote for me. Okay? Yes, sir, right here.
Thank you, Governor. My name is Michael Walton-Taconis. Came up from Connecticut. I'm a combat wounded veteran. I was shot, took a direct hit by from a suicide bomber 3 years ago. I actually was in a coma for 2 weeks, died twice. My wife was pregnant at the time. Second of all, I just wanted to say thank you to every other veteran that is here today. And to in the shadows, our police officers who have been crapped on by the media. So thank you guys. I don't want to sit here and waste, people have important questions and stuff like that, and I have a gazillion questions as well. The only question I have is, can I have a 2-minute private conversation with you, sir?
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course. We have right back here with us Colonel Tom Moe. You might see him. Make your way over to him. Colonel Moe spent 5 years in the Hanoi Hilton, years to an inch of his life, and he's here with us today. Would you walk over and see him? Oh, thank you. Okay, next question. Yes, ma'am, right there.
Yes. Hello, good afternoon. I'm Patricia Mueller from Hampton Falls, New Hampshire. It's a good time to ask this question after this gentleman just raised that comment. Let me put my glasses on. Mr. Trump made a comment about Senator John McCain's war record. Quote, "He's not a war hero. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people who weren't captured. Do you think a possible candidate for Commander-in-Chief of the United States should make a comment like that about a veteran who fought for our country?" I ask this because, in my opinion, a man or woman who has fought for our country, our great country, captured or not, is a hero. Do you agree with Mr. Trump? So I ask you, do you agree with Mr. Trump? I'm hoping you don't.
You can't be serious asking me that question.
I'm giving kudos to you.
Well, look, we just heard from this man. And my friend Tom Moe, and well, there's so many of these folks that, do you know what they do? Every year, Colonel Moe and I, he was beaten, he couldn't even get off the airplane when he came home. I appointed him the head of Veterans Affairs in Ohio. I call it the Arc of Justice, from the Hanoi Hilton to the head of Veterans Affairs in Ohio. He's now left that position because he says his wife waited for him. Now he's got to serve his wife. And so it's unbelievable what he's been through. He and I would sit every year, and still do, with the families of people who have been lost serving in the military. You know what I tell them? One thing, because I can't really share directly in their grief, but I feel their grief, is because your loved one died in the service of others, the Lord promises they'll wear the biggest crowns in the world yet to come. And I believe that. And so our veterans, our police officers, anybody who puts themselves in the line of duty, it's unbelievable, isn't it? So I tried to call John McCain today. Just called him out of the blue, and I'm going to get John McCain, who was in the cell next to Tom Moe, to talk sometime today. If I can track John down, he may be digging himself out of a snowstorm in Washington, D.C., but we need to honor them. And let me tell you this. You come back and you're a veteran, you get treatment wherever you need it. Period, end of story. No more of this screwing around with the Veterans Administration. Let me see who else. I'm looking for a lady. Yes, a young man. Yes.
Last question, Governor.
Oh, last question. Okay.
As a student in a well-respected public school system, I'm curious as to your reasons for supporting Common Core.
Well, I'll tell you what I believe, and it's not about Common Core. I don't even know what that all means, but here's what I want in Ohio and what I want in every state: high standards and local control at the school board level. Now, let me just say a couple things here about K through 12. When you and I were students, kids didn't have to do as well in school, and then they could graduate and get a job in a steel mill, a textile plant, a cement factory, a chemical plant. Well, you're not from McKees Rocks, but okay, there you go. And then you could get a job there and make a decent living, and your spouse could get a part-time job and be okay. Well, those jobs don't exist enough of the time. So it's now up to the local schools, the local school boards, to begin to make sure that, number one, we're providing for vocational education, which we do, by the way, in Ohio starting in the 7th grade. But we also know that we need to begin to train our students in a much more flexible 21st century way for the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow. And it's going to require a lot of change, a lot of flexibility, a lot of innovation. And I'd like to bundle up 104, not like to, I will bundle up 104 federal programs into 4 buckets and send it back to the states. Because you see, it's not even the states that can necessarily drive what we need. It's the local school boards and the local communities. And I think what we all have to realize, we have to do our job in the local schools and the local communities because it's about our children. And none of the politics or nonsense that happens at the local level can keep us from devising a curriculum and a path to learning, to a path to success with skills. Nothing can stand in that way. You ought to run for the school board, and you got to go in there with an agenda and don't stay too long. Go in and fix it and get out. Then you can run for city council and go fix that and then get out, okay? Hey, one last thing I'll be doing tomorrow, and I'm not pandering. Tomorrow, I'm rooting for the Patriots. I'll see y'all. Okay?
Yeah.